Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Defiance Silver.
A possible Fed pause, and the world's #1 gold miner may possibly be acquiring the #8 gold miner. This is Kitco Roundtable. You are with Deutsche Goldmesse. Paul Harris, always a pleasure to do this with you in person.
Guten Abend.
And Kai Hoffmann, the CEO of Soar Financial and the host of Deutsche Goldmesse. Thanks for joining us.
Willkommen in Frankfurt.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Let's turn to macro. I know that everybody's on a busy schedule here. You've got a concert, you've got an event to manage here, Kai, so let's go through it. We've had a really busy week, especially a busy week in macro, which has had huge implications what's happening with gold. So midweek, we had the interest rate hike. That was the 10th consecutive rate increase that we've seen. We're up to about the 5.5% or 5.25% range. Kai, help us out here. What is happening with the gold juniors? We do see that the GDX as a measure is up 30% for a year right now, but how difficult is it for the juniors?
It's still not easy, surprisingly. The sentiment here at the conference is surprisingly positive. To me, it's surprising because I'm more neutral because looking at my portfolio, the stocks haven't really moved. That being said, I don't own a lot of producers or GDX or GDXJ eligible companies. I'm more in the junior space. It hasn't moved that much. Interesting to see. Now we had you hinted at it. Gold hit almost all-time high levels. OTC was a bit lower. It's still not sexy enough. I don't get it. We had conversations before. We said, we need to break through 2,000 again to get excitement. Now I hear from commentators here, it's like, no, it's going to be 2,300, 2,400. It's like we keep moving the goalposts just to find an explanation to what is going on, right? You brought in the Fed rate hikes. Ever since March 16th or 17th last year, we had 14, 15 consecutive rate hikes. Risk money has disappeared from the sector. Although it's been looking pretty good for larger companies lately, the juniors are struggling. So the wallets of investors are still shut. Trying to raise $2 million is, I wouldn't say impossible right now, but it's a struggle, right? We see a lot of $20 million financings, a lot of $15 million financings. So our index numbers actually at Orange aren't looking that bad. Yeah. So it's a bit of a blurred picture because we have a lot of bigger financings in that space. We had Montage Gold just come to mind because they're here at the conference raising 17.2 million, bought deal. We actually see quite a few bought deals, but that's all in the bigger names, bigger financings, not in the juniors, and the grassroots explorers. So the excitement hasn't swept over. It hasn't swept over yet. So that's my point.
I think one positive aspect there, as you say, a lot of bought deals, which means the banks are getting involved and selling to their customers. It's not just the juniors going around and rattling the can in private placements. So the banks are getting involved. They're seeing an opportunity to make fees, and they're getting their investors into mining stocks or exploration stocks.
Just one side note as well. You have to be careful, or not careful. Sorry, wrong comment. But you have to look at how management is participating, or if management is actually bringing in the investor, because oftentimes bought deals are brought deals where they actually have placed 60-65% already internally or with friends, family, and their network, and the banks don't have to do much. So it's interesting to look at that and just keep that in mind. But bank confidence is fantastic.
Let's keep with the dampening mood if we can. Paul, we were talking earlier and then you flagged this to me, and that was the Cisco deal. So you see that it made a deal with Goldfields, and that was going to be a joint venture for moving forward their Windfall project. They paid $600 million, I believe, for a 50% stake in the project. What's your reaction on the deal?
I think this is a landmark deal in many ways, or will come to be seen as a landmark deal in many ways, because the ultimate dream for the majority of junior explorers is to find a deposit, prove it up, get several million ounces on the books, and then sell it on at a profit or a premium to a bigger company. Windfall, Cisco Mining's project in Quebec, has been one of the standout deposits for a number of years. It's very high grade, it's very big. And so I think the message is, or one of the ways to read this, Cisco Mining wasn't able to get a premium for their project. They weren't able to necessarily sell it for a premium. Instead, they've chosen to do a joint venture. So I think the ripples of that are going to come down through the sector. And potentially one read on that is, deals may be on the table for gold developers or gold juniors with gold projects, but they're not necessarily going to be able to get premiums. And if that is the case, then that really puts the whole sort of model on its head, and I think will leave a lot of managements pondering, what do we do next?
That's like the second disappointment that we've had in 2023, because I think going back to B2 Gold when it swept in, and the got Sabine as well too, that really didn't go at near at the premium that people were hoping it would go at.
I know there's kind of mixed signals, because we go back last year and we had Kimros, not Kitco, buying Great Bear Resources, yes, for a premium pre-resource. Everybody thought, well, game on. But now with this still, arguably, and a bit of artistic license here, the best asset in the best jurisdiction that is there to develop, and they've chosen a joint venture route, basically getting some money and a joint venture partner in. This could also be part of company strategy. They still want to participate in the upside of the development. But I think a lot of people were expecting a sale there, a takeover or something like that for Windfall, because it is such a standout asset.
Kai, I want to congratulate you. Not only did you have your conference during kind of like, I see the most active week for what is happening with the Fed and all of the banking crises and then the pause, but also we have the announcement regarding Newmont Newcrest. So Bloomberg about midweek was saying it looks like the board is going to approve the takeover, that they're going to approve what is offered by Newmont. So what you're going to have is you're going to have the number 1 gold miner taking out the number 8 gold miner. So looking at the numbers right now, what the 222 production numbers you see, a combined Newmont Newcrest would have annual production of about 7.1 million ounces. That would be 70% higher production than number 2 miner Barrick Gold. Now this again is just taken from 2022 numbers, if you can actually say if everything stays the same. The secondly is that Newmont is really going to be coming to BC in a big way. Newcrest has got Red Chris copper mine, it's got the Bruce Jack gold mine, it has a GT gold property that is owned by Newmont, it also has a 50% stake in Galore Creek. Paul, Kai, anything that you want to add about the deal?
It's interesting. I spoke with Chris Mancini from Gabelli the other day. We hosted a webinar together, and I asked him point blank, like, you own both companies in your portfolio, each roughly weighted 5% in there. So if you combine them, that's 10% of your entire portfolio. That's massively overweight. Okay, what are you going to do? What's the plan here? You can't stay at 10%. He said, well, we're obviously going to trim. So I'm suspecting he will go down to 8 or 7%, but that frees up capital. Yeah. So my next question was, being on the junior end, what are you going to do with that money? Mm-hmm. And I think that's the interesting part, because he said, I'm going downstream. I'm going at decent mid-sized producers that only have a single asset. Mm-hmm. That's where he's going, because they will have to do something. There's an interest. They're undervalued in the bigger aspect. And then again, those single asset producers, they will have to go around and actually buy something at some point as well. So it will slowly trickle down into the juniors. And a $19 billion transaction should shake out some money.
I think another aspect to it is, this is obviously a very big transaction, and part of Newmont getting it over the line and convincing Newcrest shareholders of, this is a great opportunity for them. It was very recently, its narrative has been all about, the value add, the synergies, and also the rationalization process it went through in sort of 2019, 2020 after it acquired Goldcorp. It said very quickly, in a very short 12 months, it had divested, I think, $1-2 billion worth of assets. So big company, lots of assets now. We can expect to see another wave of divestments coming in. And so that could really put a bit of a short-term spanner in the wheel for gold juniors expecting M&A transaction, because people that are looking at doing transactions, I think, will be perhaps waiting to see what's going to come out of Newmont Newcrest, or whatever they end up calling the company, because there's going to be some good assets coming into play.
Let's just hope it doesn't turn into a disappointment like what we saw with Newmont and Barrick and that Nevada Gold Mines merger. Nothing came out, or even Newmont Gold Corp. Not much came out. Everybody expected coffee to be sold in the Yukon. Hasn't happened. They're developing it now. Ooh. Right? So I'm curious, like, there's always a chance for disappointment, because I know some of those single asset producers actually have come out of bigger transactions. Torex, I think, comes to mind. That was a spin out of Goldcorp, I believe. I might be wrong. But mid-tier producers have been created out of those major mergers. Yeah. Curious if that happens again.
I think also Peter Maroney was supposed to be turning his attentions to Western Canada as well too, or the Yamana.
He's going into Africa. I can't remember the name of the company, but there's a big private gold company in Africa, and Peter Maroney and the whole ex-Yamana team is going there. I think I'm going to be having a call with him at some point in the near future to talk about that. So he's very much focused on repeating the Yamana model in Africa.
Closing out here right now, this is the first week of May. A lot has happened this year. We're going to be approaching the summer doldrums. For the continuance of 2023, what are going to be some of the major themes? What are going to be some of the milestones that you're going to be looking at? Kai, I'll start with you.
There's going to be a lot of drilling over the summer because, as I said, there were a lot of bigger financings, but company-changing financings, so which is good because that money's going to have an impact. And that we'll see play out over the summer. I'll personally try to do quite a few site visits. I know I have a number already booked, so I'm looking forward to that. See how the Newmont-Newcrest deal plays out, but it'll take time. There could be really big influx of capital into the sector, at least into JDX-listed companies, or in that size bracket. So that could be fun, to be honest, because that could push prices higher and maybe bring some excitement back, despite it being summer.
Paul?
For me, I think one of the key things is, for better or worse, gold is holding around that sort of $2,000 per ounce level. So, people are talking about it's had the triple bottom, it's set up to go much higher, and that could really propel things. To Kai's point earlier, a lot of companies, while some companies have raised big amounts, a lot of companies haven't. A lot of juniors will need to come back to the market, and I think they could be finding things difficult going unless the gold price does take a leap.
I think the theme that I'm looking forward is going to be around the excitement around copper, but how difficult, it doesn't get pulled down by recession. Everybody's talking about recession right now, and it's Dr. Copper, and then you have two sides with what has happened with copper. You have the energy transition story, you have the depletion of mines. Copper should be going to the moon, and there's been a lot of excitement about that. But on the other hand, it's an industrial metal. It's probably the industrial metal, and we've really seen that it has been taken to the woodshed in terms of like where it was and what has actually been taken down to just with the returns and recessions. I mean, that is also added with oil, because we've seen oil has been in the $60 barrel, which is really quite surprising considered like how gangbusters it was. Paul, you're looking askance at me.
Yeah, copper's is a fascinating space because everybody knows the deficit is coming. Everybody's preparing for it. Everybody knows the cupboard is bare. Everybody knows it's going to go there. But it's like we're driving a Model T Ford that goes at 10 miles an hour. It's just going to take a long time for us to get there.
No, maybe Dr. Copper's already told us the recession is coming, because you said it was at over $5.50 a pound, and now we're at $3.80.
$4.50.
We're touching $5. We're close to $5. I'll have to check my charts. But I think we had a big run up, and then it came back, and now we're trading at $3.80. Maybe that's already telling us something, if you want to look at it that way. But that's the only real explanation I have, because everybody's talking about it. It's like in gold. Everybody's talking about it, but nobody does anything.
But 380 is still a very good price for copper. Copper
yeah.
Producers, their C1 production costs are, good producers, sub $1 a pound. A decent producers, perhaps $1, $1.50. So these guys are making big margin.
So, I don't know. Last point I want to make, maybe we're being too greedy as gold investors, because I think 2040 is not a bad price for gold. So that's maybe... And I would just wish more excitement would be back at $2,000, because the margins are still good. Newmont's producing at $1,375. That's still a $625 margin per ounce, at least. So what's wrong with that?
I think the last time we were doing this, Kai, is that we were complaining about Bitcoin taking all the oxygen out of the room for gold. So, it shows that things change in this industry.
That's the other puzzling thing. I think I said that in another talk before. We actually don't have any competition right now. As gold investors or gold stock investors, gold mining investors. There was so much competition before, now there's nothing. We had lithium actually take a little bit of fun away, out of the space, or money away. We had cannabis before, Bitcoin, but now there's no competition. At least I'm missing it, but I don't see it right now. So if gold stocks want to run, full attention is on gold stocks, or could be on gold stocks.
We're gonna leave it there. Kai, I appreciate your time. You're hosting this conference. Run to the next event that you're going to be host. But thank you very much for having us, having Paul and myself at your event.
Danke dir vielmals.
Appreciate it. Paul Harris, next time I see this, it'll probably be in a Zoom call. So, but I'll take Paul Harris live when I can get it.
Okay, bis später.
Kitco Mining special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Defiance Silver.